Hello, everybody. This is Sunday, November 5th, 2023. My name is Patrick Stewart, and this is your Taoism lesson for the week. For those who may be new, I am the editor and founder of The Taoist Online, which is a medium.com publication. We publish lots of articles, not just about Taoism, but also philosophy, spirituality, religion, personal stories, really stories about the human experience. So every week, I do these live streams and we talk about Taoism and what it is and how we got here. Specifically, every week, we work through a couple of chapters of this book, 365 Tao, Daily Meditations. In this book by Ding Ming-Dao, you will find very short, brief chapters that you're supposed to go through every single day, one per day, and then think about those and meditate on them. So that's what we're going to do. This is episode 9. We are on chapter 41. Now, because I don't stream every day, what we do is go through as many as we can get through in about the next 45 minutes, and then we'll see where we are. I try and do 7, but usually we only get through about 5. And we're going to keep going. There are 365 chapters in this book, and we will go through every single one over the next year or two. If you want to read anything we publish, you can go to thedaoist.online, or you can check out our homepage, thedaoistonline.org. We are offering some holiday merch. We have an amazing Discord server that you can join and hang out with us and all the editors and writers. There's a couple hundred of us in there now. It's a great place, very chill, very calm. So please, if you want a place you can come express yourself and be who you are naturally, please stop by, and we'd love to have you in there. All right. What is Taoism, you may ask? Well, Taoism is an ancient Chinese philosophy/religion. I say it that way because in Chinese, there actually is no word for religion. It's just teaching is the word they use. So as soon as you get there, as soon as you get to that part, you've already lost, some in translation. But about 2,500 years ago, a man by the name of Lao Tzu, mythical, legendary figure, wrote this. This is Tao Te Ching. In it, it's very short. It's only about 81 poems. He was a librarian, and he got fed up with all the wars and the corruption he saw in the government in ancient China and all the warring states. So he decided to leave. But on his way out of the country, a border guard stopped him and asked him to write down words of wisdom. So he did. So he legendarily wrote this. Now, there's some debate on whether or not that is a real story, on whether or not, he was a real person, or maybe it was just collected over the years, but it doesn't matter, because the wisdom contained therein is true, right? Even if he didn't exist, it doesn't, what he's teaching doesn't need for him to exist, right? Because Taoism really is the focus of nature. It's looking around you and looking at how the universe evolves and propagates, and then trying to live your life in accordance or in harmony with that lifestyle, with that way, right? Tao translates into the way most of the time, depending on who you ask. That's how I like to translate it. All right. So here we go. Chapter 41. Resolution. Footsteps in the sand, quickly washed away. The seashore mind. Going to the beach means walking in fresh air, listening to the sound of waves, feeling the grit of sand beneath our feet. The narrow ribbon between land and ocean is a perfect place to understand the mind of wisdom. As there is a dynamic balance between sand and water, so too is there a dynamic equilibrium between the crescent and active sides of our minds. Just as the sand is constantly being washed, so too should we keep our minds free of lingering impression. We often let thoughts, regrets, and doubts from past activities carry over into the present. This leads us to conflict. Instead of allowing this to happen, we should act without leaving consequences. This requires great thoroughness. Such completeness is challenging, but to succeed is to live perfectly. By resolving the problems of each day to our utmost satisfaction, we attain the sublime purity of a beach constantly washed by waves. In this book specifically, and in Taoism really generally, water is the metaphor of choice for much of the teaching. Tao is undefinable. It moves through all things. It treats all things equally. For example, if you have a group of robbers and a group of regular non-robbers, right? Water gives nourishment to both people equally. It can be calm. It can be, ravenous. It can wash away rocks. It can destroy mountains. But then again, if I put my hand, I can push it out of the way, right? Water is the perfect analogy, perfect metaphor for Taoism, for the Tao. So we see that here, specifically a beach. The thing that stands out to me here is the end of the chapter. We often let thoughts, regrets, and doubts from past activities carry over into the present. This leads us to conflict. Indeed. There's a quote, I don't know where I heard it from, or maybe it's just kind of common knowledge, that, worry about your past is called regret, and worry about your future is called anxiety. So worry in and of itself is really you kind of concentrating on either things that have already happened that you can't change, or things that are coming up that you can prepare for, but since they're not here yet, you can't control what's going to happen in the future either, right? You can prepare for what you think that might happen, but the future is still going to happen the way it happens, right? So in this metaphor where we talk about, the waves coming in and washing away and letting that be kind of your guide on how you live your life, letting that wave come in and then wash away everything that happened, right? Those emotions appear inside of you and then you let them pass. Stuff like anger, worry, anxiety, sadness, but even good emotions, right? Happiness, joy. You can't hang on to anything forever, right? We have to let go of everything eventually, right? Whether it's, when we're kids, it's our favorite toy. When we're teenagers, maybe it's a relationship that isn't working out. As an adult, maybe it's, watching our kids grow up. And none of these are harmful things most of the time. They're just naturally a part of us. And trying to shield ourselves from our own emotions is to behave unnaturally. Your negative emotions are just as a part of you as your positive emotions, right? Anger and jealousy and sadness is just as much you as is happiness, joy, and excitement, right? And trying to deny that is trying to deny who you are. So we have to allow these emotions to pass. And the way we do that is through our daily practice. I do breathing exercises. I do meditation or meditation through breathing exercises. There's a lot of ways to kind of get through that, but that's really what this is kind of getting at, right? Acting without consequences, right? Like behaving in a way where you can do what needs to get done and then let it pass, right? You have to be very thorough. The chapter is exactly right. It's challenging, but if you can do it, if you can get there, then, as this book says, is to live perfectly. By resolving problems of each day to our utmost satisfaction, we attain the sublime purity of a beach constantly washed by waves. So get done what you need to get done for today and let it go. Don't worry about what happened yesterday, because you can't change it. Don't have anxiety about tomorrow. Just do what needs to get done today and let go. All right. 42. Walking. Trail beside stream. Fragrant pine. Rocky red earth. Steep mountain. Walking may be a good metaphor for spiritual life, but there are times when simple hiking is literally the best activity. When one walks in the woods or climbs mountains, there is a wonderful unity of body, mind, and spirit. Hiking strengthens the legs, increases stamina, invigorates the blood, and soothes the mind. Away from the madness of society, one is freed to observe nature's lessons. Erosion, gnarled roots, the carcass of a dead deer, a flight of swallows, the high spirals of hawks, bladed reflections of rushing water, just budding bare branches, gray rock cracked, shattered, and worn, a fallen tree, a lone cloud, the laughter of plum branches, even a little circle of rocks beside the trail. Who put them there? Or did any hand arrange them? And no matter which, what are the secrets of that circle? There are 1,000 meanings in every view if only we open ourselves to see the scripture of the landscape. So my teacher, my Taoist teacher, George Thompson, when I first started taking classes from him a few years ago, he stressed this to us, which was to get out into nature as much as you possibly could, whether that's going for a walk or just sitting outside. He stressed that humans are not, humans did not evolve to stare at screens all day. Humans did not, work for millions of years or however long to, sit in these little boxes that we built for ourselves and disconnect ourselves from everything, around us. We are a part of nature. We are nature just as much as that rock over there is nature. Just as much as that tree is nature. Like we are a part of all living things. So to disconnect ourselves from everything else alive around us is to really do our minds and our bodies a disservice. Do you remember being a kid and like walking out barefoot? Or maybe you do this as an adult. You walk out and you step on that cool grass, like maybe you went to a park, and like you get that rush, like all the way up your body and it kind of tingles, right? There's a reason for that. You making connection with living things feels natural, right? It feels like that's a part of you. because it is. And whenever I do my Qigong, which is a form of movement meditation, the differences I feel from doing it here in my loft or doing it down in the park is striking, right? It's very, very different. As this lists off quite eloquently, gnarled roots, erosion, rocks, birds, the wind, branches, everything. Like, just look around and think about what it took for everything to be right where it is at that moment, right? And I love how at the end of the chapter, it talks about a little circle of rocks beside the trail, right? So if you're doing a walking trail and you look around, sometimes you'll find, designs. Maybe someone picked up a couple of branches and made something, or maybe they, made a design with rocks. That rock formation took millions of years, billions of years to create. If you think about it, I mean, the minerals that make up that rock, where did those come from? Where did those rocks come from? Did they fall down somewhere? Like, where did those come from? Did that rock come from the same place as this other rock? And I mean, the actions that are required for those rocks to be there at that time, for you to be born when you were, to walk down that trail, exactly when that person had made that circle of rocks, like the trillions of actions that had to happen in order for you to get there at that time to see those rocks is incomprehensible. Like, you can't even begin to think about that. So you passing that trail and seeing that design of rocks is a miracle, right? It's a complete 1 in a trillion odds that you would be at this time with those rocks. Like, you just can't comprehend the odds of that situation. And you really can't connect with that if all you're doing is sitting inside all day, right? If you don't go out into nature and see what's there and really think about those things, take the time, you'll be surprised when you do. It is different. I promise you it's different. I know I look hot. It's raining, snowing sometimes in some places of the world right now. Not here in Texas, but some places it is. So I get it. Sometimes you can't always go to the park, right? Maybe you have kids. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of energy to get done what you need to get done today. But take some time when you can. Get outside. All right, 43. Perseverance. Invisible lines. The fisherman repairs his net, and the fish are nearly caught. If the fisherman does not have a properly repaired net, then his trap is useless. Preparation is the major part of his endeavor. Only when the fisherman keeps his net intact, keeps his boat repaired, and studies the conditions of fish and water, does going out to fish become a mere formality. The fish fall into his hands as if guided by invisible lines. When it seems as if nothing encouraging is happening to us, it is important to remember such perseverance. Work may be drudgery, maintaining a home may be routine, and we may find our goals quite distant, but we must preserve and prepare nonetheless. Nevertheless, that will bring a steady peace towards our goals, and buoy our faith in rough and threatening times. To taste the fruit of perseverance requires maturity and experience. We need to cultivate patience, planning, and timing. We need our resources even when circumstances seem to be against us. We don't neglect anything we have set in motion. If we nurse our plans through good times and bad, our plans will eventually succeed, with the inevitability of fish caught in a net. So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is the waves kind of washing the shore and letting, not worrying about the past or the future. But what about today, right? How do you handle today? Perseverance is the answer here, right? You have to find that inner strength to move on, to keep going, right? To focus on only what is going to happen today. And I think you'll find that when you get to that point where you can just focus on today, how much extra kind of mind power you have, how much energy you have to take care of those things, right? If you're not so worried about yesterday and you're not concerned about tomorrow, that frees up your mind and your abilities to really take care of the tasks at hand, especially with preparation, right? You don't just willy-nilly go about your life and be like, well, whatever happens, happens. Like, guess I don't have to do anything, right? Taoism is not the laziness philosophy, right? It's not a pacifist philosophy. Preparation is still important, right? The fisherman prepares his net, prepares his boat today. So that way tomorrow when he gets out onto the water and goes to catch those fish, he will catch more fish, will be more efficient. The fish will simply appear to fall in the net because he did everything he needed to do when it had to be done. Real life example. Let's see. Studying for a test. For those of you who may be younger, who may be in school or college, if you don't study for a test, you're not going to do as well. Or maybe you fail, right? Pretty simple, right? But when you're a week away and you're like, well, I should probably study, the first thing that came to mind is like, well, I've got 6 more days. Surely I've got enough time, right? I have 6 days to go study. And then you don't do it, right? You just procrastinate. And then you get to the day before and you're like, oh my God, I have all this stuff to memorize. And you sit down and you stay up late, right? And that, in a way, is its own form of perseverance. I mean, you did study, right? But think about how much better you would have done had you taken the time to really persevere, sit there, and get done what you need to get done today, right? It's hard. That's the hardest thing for me sometimes, is trying to not procrastinate, right? Lions don't procrastinate. They need their food. Like, they go out and hunt when they're hungry. And when they're not hungry, they sit there, right? Like, it's a very human trait, right? Like laziness. A very, like, putting off today what you can do tomorrow seems very human. That's not supernatural if we look around, right? So yeah, that's what this is getting at for me. If you have any thoughts in the chat, by all means, please let me know. I will comment on them. All right. Chapter 44. Stretching. When young things are soft, when old things are brittle, stretching both literally and metaphorically is a necessary part of life. Physically, a good program of stretching emphasizes all parts of the body. You loosen the joints and tendons first, so that subsequent movements will not hurt. Then, methodically stretch the body, beginning with the larger muscle groups, such as the legs and back, and proceed to finer and smaller parts like fingers. Coordinate stretching with breathing. Use long and gentle stretches rather than bouncing ones. when you stretch in one direction, always be sure to stretch in the opposite direction as well. If you follow this procedure, your flexibility will undoubtedly increase. Metaphorical stretching leads to expansion and flexibility in personal growth. A young plant is tender and pliant. An older one is stiff, woody, and vulnerable to breaking. Softness is thus equated with life, hardness with death. The more flexible you are, the greater your mental and physical health. Yes. It is important to move. In Taoism, we're taught that our bodies are an energy factory, and that the heart of this energy factory is right below your belly button, called the dantian. And this dantian requires movement to make energy, which is a little opposite than what we're taught growing up in the West. Think about it like this. When I was a kid, we're taught that when you go to sleep, your body is resting and it's somehow making more energy for you. And when you wake up, you start with this amount of energy, and throughout the day, it just kind of goes down. And at the end of the day, you're out of energy, you're tired, and you go back to sleep, and the cycle starts over again. So you're taught that sleep is what builds this energy, like you're moon powered, right? like you're a gargoyle, and you turn to stone at night or something, and it saves up your energy, and you gain more, and then you go back. All right, in Taoism, we're taught that we need movement to build this energy. Have you ever gone outside? Remember being a kid and you run around outside and you played with your friends, and when you come inside, you feel like you have more energy than you can possibly take, right? Or you ever gone for a walk or had a really busy day at work, and you exercise and you feel more alive, right? You feel like you could do almost anything. That's what's going on, right? That's the feeling, is you're using your movement and your body, and that's generating more energy for you to then continue, right? Qigong, Tai Chi, a lot of the martial arts, is an attempt to do this in practice, right? To give you yoga, right? Same thing. To bend and be pliable and to move is to harness the energy of the universe. Some believe that if you do this correctly or long enough, that you can actually live just off of the energy of the universe, that you don't even need to eat anymore. I'm not suggesting that. Don't do that. I'm just giving you the knowledge. I do practice most days, not every day, because I'm human and I mess up sometimes. That's my goal every single day, is to bend and move, and it's important that you do that correctly. For example, in here, you want to stretch both sides. Taoism definitely equates stiffness and hardness with death. I know here on that second page, it says, a young plant is tender and pliant. An older one is stiff, woody, and vulnerable to breaking. That's very much the metaphor you'll find in Taoist texts. Just look around. Look at, young people versus old people, right? When you're young, you're running around and you jump all over the place and you climb on things and you bend over backwards and do all these crazy things. When you're old, you're just you're just very stiff. That's because we didn't take care of ourselves, right? We need to continue to move and be active and exercise. And if you don't, your muscles atrophy and your joints harden, and your yeah, to stay alive, we need to move. And again, it's that movement. It's energy through movement. It's life through continuously going, and not working like crazy all the time, right? Like, don't beat yourself up like that, but don't sit here all day either, right? Go out, go do something, have fun, right? Be alive. Enjoy this existence while you can. We can beat inflation with, yeah. In the chat, the thought of living on air is fascinating. Yeah, thanks, Inya. Yeah, it is. Isn't that interesting? I don't have enough time to go through all that. Maybe we will one day. Maybe I'll write something about it one day, and I'll put it on Medium. I'll put it in the publication. All right. Circulation. Spirituality begins in the loins, ascends up the back, and returns to the navel. Spirituality is not just mental activity. It is also an expression of energy. The source of this energy is physical, rooted in the basic chemistry of the body. Self-cultivation refines this energy for spiritual attainment. Enlightenment for a follower of Tao is therefore a psychophysical achievement. It is a state of being rather than a mere intellectual understanding. Once the energy is awakened through special exercises and meditations, the follower of Tao knows how to draw this energy upward. The force begins from the genitals and arises up the spine. On its way, it nourishes the kidneys, nerves, and blood vessels. When it passes the base of the skull, the nervous system and the lower parts of the brain are stimulated. Reaching the crown, this river of energy opens the entire subconscious potential of a human being. Descending downward, it nourishes the eyes, the senses, the vital organs. Cascading towards the navel, it returns to our original state of purity. From there, it returns to the loins again, ready to be drawn into another circuit. Just as all existence operates on a continuum between gross physical matter and the most subtle levels of consciousness, so too does the follower of Tao utilize all parts of the body, mind, and spirit for spiritual devotion. Here it is, guys. We just talked about this in the previous chapter. Yeah, the Dantian, it's your energy factory. So this chapter breaks down literally how this works. Okay? So yes, it begins right below your belly button, in your loins, in your genitals for a lot of times. Isn't that just fitting? Isn't that just toot your horn, man? But yeah, so starts at the bottom, goes up your back, through your nervous system, comes all the way back up into your head, stimulates your brain, comes back down into your face, into your extremities, and begins again as a cycle, right? Just like, well, if you look at the icon right here, yin yang, right? Everything returns. Everything moves in cycles, right? Meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga is self-cultivation of everything. Specifically, in this chapter, of the Tao, of the energy of the universe, right? And through these movements, through these exercises, whether they be mental exercises or physical exercises, right? Meditation through movement, you're generating and cycling the energy throughout your body, right? And this chapter is breaking down how that physically works. One of the reasons earlier why being outside is so important when you do being barefoot, also, when you do these meditations and movements outside, is through your feet, you can draw in the energy of the earth into you and then use that to cycle throughout your body. It's that connection. Remember how I said that when you step into that cool grass, feel that jolt go up your spine, right? Starts in your feet. It comes up. It goes straight up to your head and hits you in the fingertips. It's like being electrocuted, right? You ever been electrocuted? I unfortunately have. That's what you get for working in computers and not unplugging things when you should, right? It goes straight across and comes out the other side, right? And you feel it, right? And it's the same way with energy from anything, right? You'll feel it come up and cycle throughout your body. And the cycle can continue over and over and over again. It is I know it seems very mystical. It seems very new age. I get it, right? It's a big leap. I was kind of like, this is some hippie bullshit when I first started learning this. But I wouldn't tell you it works if it didn't work for me, right? You feel better. You do. Get outside, you soak in the sun, you do the movements. Even if it's not trained movements, right? Even if you're just walking or running, right? That is its own form, in my opinion, of Qigong, right? It's the cultivation of that energy into yourself. It does make you feel better. I hope you try it, right? I hope that your cultivation of the Tao brings you joy and happiness throughout your day. And the more you do it, the better you'll feel. Okay? Promise. Organization. Organization. Pattern and creativity are the two poles of action. It is wise to plan each day by setting goals for oneself and organizing activities to be accomplished. One can be sure that each day will be full and never wasted. Followers of Tao use patterns when planning. They observe the ways of nature, perceive the invisible lines of destiny. They imagine a pattern for their entire lives, and in this way, they ensure overall success. Each day, they match interim patterns against their master goals, and so navigate life with sureness and grace. It is precisely this ability to discern and manipulate patterns unknown the ordinary person that makes the follower of Tao formidable. When unpredictable things happen, those who follow Tao are also skilled at improvisation. If circumstances deny them, they change immediately. To avoid confusion, they still discern the patterns of the situation and create new ones. Much like a chess player at the board, the spontaneous creation of new patterns is their ultimate art. So, organizing your life. Let's talk about that. Remember how we were talking about perseverance? Well, how do you do that? Right? How do you persevere? Organization is one way. Remember I said that being a Taoist or practicing Taoism teachings is not to be not to let yourself get trampled on all the time, right? It's not a pacifist journey. You don't just sit there and let someone beat you up and not defend yourself, right? You don't just say, well, come what may, and, I'm just going to sit here and be lazy and not try and just do what I want, right? Or do nothing all the time. Yay, me. No, it's not like that. Being a follower of Tao or being a cultivator of Tao means you organize, you look, you observe, right? You see those patterns, right? The cyclical nature, the duality of it. You are able to discern where you are in that cycle and then organize and plan accordingly. Now, the caveat there is to also remember that you can't predict the future exactly. Even if you plan and even if you organize and even if you take care of what you're going to do today so that, tomorrow things will happen, you think things will happen in a certain way, it's almost assured that you're going to get to tomorrow and it won't go the way you want, right? There are too many moving parts. There are too many things to affect what's going to happen that your plans can't work out all the time. So when that does happen, you adjust immediately. You don't dwell on, I wish it hadn't happened like this. I wish this had happened differently. Oh, woe is me. Right? Nope. You just adjust, you move on, and you handle the new situation. And then you take that new data and you organize it. You think about it. You meditate on it. You see that pattern, the new pattern, and then you continue. Right? And improvisation is such a good word for what's going on. I've tried to be honest with my kids and say that I don't have everything figured out. I mean, from an early age, I tried to express that we're kind of making this up as we go, right? Like, nobody writes a book on how to be a parent. Like, I mean, there are lots of books on how to be a parent, but nobody writes a book for how to be a parent to your kids in your life. Let me be more specific there. So, I can't, when my kids come to me and say, Dad, how should I handle this situation? I don't know. Like, that didn't happen to me when I was a kid. Like, I didn't grow up in today's society. You just kind of think about it and make it up. And then your kids are like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. You're very smart. And I playing it by ear, right? I'm like a musician where I hear a song and then someone says, hey, go play with this. All right. Like, I was a drummer for years. I played drums all through junior high, high school, college, into my 20s. Lots of jazz. And jazz is all about improvisation. And someone plays a melody and you just have to make it up as you go. There's no music. There's no, chart. You just play whatever comes out and that's it. That's what your life is going to be like a lot of times. I can practice as a drummer. I can play along with other songs. I can learn new beats and rhythms. But when I get there to that gig and the saxophone player says, hey, here's this new thing that you've never heard of before. 1, 2, 3, go. You just got to play it. And that's what being a parent's like. That's what your life is going to be like. You're going to get to tomorrow and something's going to happen that you couldn't possibly have seen coming. And you've got to improv it. You just got to make up what you want to do. You think about it. You look at kind of how you got here and see how you might go in the future and then make a decision and go. And you can't look back on your past decisions and regret. You can't worry about the other things you can't control in the future. You recognize those patterns, organize them. You organize your life the best way you can and move on and let go of everything else. Organizing. Improvisation, spontaneity. Be spontaneous, right? Spontaneously be able to move on, if that makes sense. All right, we're going to do one more, and that'll be it. Impermanence. A good one. This is good. I like this one. This will be a good one to end on. Tidal windstorm. Splits trees and rock, yet cannot last a day. So much less man's work. When a storm hits, an entire ocean of wind can rain. When a storm hits, an entire ocean of wind and rain is spent upon the land. Leaves are turned inside out, branches are torn, and even hard granite is worn away. But such gales seldom last an entire day. In spite of the tremendous amount of force that is released, the storm cannot last. If heaven's works cannot last today, human works must be even less lasting. Governments barely survive from year to year. The rules of society are constantly being challenged, the family erodes, personal relationships decay, and one's career topples. Even the monuments of the world are now being destroyed by air pollution and neglect. Nothing lasts. It is simple fact that no event set in motion by human beings lasts forever. All our efforts are temporary. They borrow from pre-existing forces, ride the current of natural events, and disappear according to the dictates of the situation. It is best to realize the transitory nature of things and work with it. Understanding the world's empirical nature can be the biggest advantage of all. The impermanence of all things. One day you won't be here. One day I won't be here. One day this website won't be here. One day this recording won't be here. One day this house won't be here. It'd go on, right? Even the Great Pyramids and all their thousands of years of history won't be here at one point. The earth won't be here at one point. And at that point, what did it matter? What did any of it matter? It's easy to get into that real nihilistic point of view when you start to think about millions and millions and billions of years into the future, right? But it's important to not use that knowledge to think, well, none of this matters. Because it does matter. It matters to you. It matters to the people around you. You know, I wrote something the other day in our Discord server where some people, you know, they want to live forever. They're curious about how it'll all end. But from your point of view, the universe ends with you. Because you won't be around to see how the universe ends for anybody else. So, in a way, you're going to live to see the end of all things. And that's important, right? Important to keep that in mind. It's important to remember that your actions have a real effect on others. Now, yes, at some point, maybe the direct impact of your actions will wither and fade. But if we look at something like the circle of rocks we were talking about in the earlier chapter this morning, billions of years of actions led to that moment, right? Maybe a deer 1,000 years ago walked across that path and fell over and knocked off a piece of rock, and it rolled down that hill so that some person 2,000 years later could pick that rock up and put it in that circle, right? So did that deer matter? I mean, if he hadn't been there to knock that rock over, wouldn't have been there to be put in that circle for you to see it. So the impermanence of things is counterbalanced by the fact that everything you do cannot be contained with just you. It is, you ever heard that saying that, like, you know, the butterfly flaps its wings and causes a hurricane, right? Or causes a tsunami across the ocean? We don't know. It's impossible to understand that. It's impossible to know what our actions will cause. It doesn't mean we're going to live forever. It doesn't mean we're going somewhere, right? Or we're just going to sit there and watch it all occur. But it is important to keep in mind. It's the duality of it, right? Our actions may ripple throughout time, but our time we have to create those ripples is finite, is defined. And we don't know that definition. I remember growing up in church, and one of the reasons they would try and convince us to believe is that, you could die tomorrow. Don't want to go to, you don't want to go to hell, right? And you scare you into, believing. But, in the Taoist sense, it's more literal than that, right? It's not about what comes next, right? No, we're not concerned about what happens after we die. We're concerned about what we're doing right now. We're concerned about how it's affecting those people around you. The impermanence. Even I love the example here in this chapter. Even a giant storm can come in. It can knock down your house and wear down rocks and mountains and blow over trees. But even that ends, right? Even all storms end. All negative things end, and all positive things end as well. And that's important to remember. Important to prepare yourself when those positive things are going to come to an end. And it's important to prepare and organize to be ready for those negative things, right? And when those negative things happen, to know that they will end and that it will cycle in all things. Everything moves all the time, never stops, never slows down. You just are who you are, and the world is what it is, and we're just in it. It doesn't mean we can't be happier. It doesn't mean we can't have a positive change in the world. But it's important to remember. All right. In chat, Inya called it the universe. Yeah. Y-O-U-I-niverse. The universe. Yeah. Your universe. Another question. So is this similar to chakras in a way? Yeah, it's related. Yeah, it's definitely related. A lot of these religions in the East are based on kind of shamanistic, the natural order of things, right? So you kind of, everyone was kind of observing what was going on back then, and then trying to make sense and organize it. And they were all kind of touching on the same thing, but the way it kind of worked out based on cultural differences or, their belief system at the time and how they were incorporated. Yeah, they play out in different ways. But you'll find very, very similar aspects to, Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and Confucianism. Like, it's all seems to be coming from like the same place. It just worked out a little differently over thousands of years. So yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, hi. Hello, Gerald. Missed most of the class, but checking in before I have to view it later. Yeah, fine. This will be online immediately. I appreciate all you guys for showing up today and listening. Just to review, the Taoist Online, do publish new articles every single day on Medium, thedaoist.online. That's Taoist with a T. If you want to help support the organization, we have a coffee link right there at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to make any donations. We have holiday merch on thedaoistonline.org. Please feel free to take a look. Everything that we take in through donations goes right back out to the writers in tips. I tip everybody every month. We try to always give back what we bring in. We're not here to make money. We're here to allow everyone to be who they are and to express themselves. And hopefully, we learn something. Hopefully, we learn from each other. All right. Thank you very much. I will see you guys next week, an hour earlier due to time changes. Yes. Goodbye.